right, on this problem, let's go ahead and solve. Let's just do two of these. I think the less thans are a little bit more interesting here than the greater than. So let's focus on those two. Now, one other thing I want to point out before I start here, this one looks a little bit different than the previous one because I don't have a 0 on one side. Immediately, if you see that on any one of your problems, you want to change it so it has a 0 on one side. Doesn't matter which side. I'll just keep it on the right, but you need to have a 0 on one side in order to use the process that I showed you in the first video on this section. So it doesn't matter which side you move it to. If you move it to a different side than your friend does, you will have different work in between, but you'll get the same final answer. It'll match up. But you need a 0 on one side, doesn't matter which side. So I subtracted the 4x squared over on both of those. All right, so first things first here, I need to find the x-intercepts, and I'm going to do that by setting the function equal to 0. It's just like setting y equal to 0. And I notice here I can factor out an x squared, so I'll go ahead and do that. Left over I have an x squared minus 3x minus 4. And then, let's see, I think I can factor this even more. I need factors of -4 that add up to -3. I think -4 and +1 will work there. And now, okay, now I can solve for 0. So I get a 0, a +4, and a -1. So I can set up my number line here. Go ahead and do that right below, -1, 0, and 4. All right, now I need to start testing things. So I need to start testing things here. Move this up a little bit. So maybe first things first, I will go ahead and test, let's say, something to the left of -1, maybe -2. Let's plug in -2. Again, I'm going to do it to the factored form of the equation of the function. So -2 squared, -2 minus 4, -2 plus 1. All right, well, let's see here. So we have a -2 squared is positive, -2 minus 4 is negative, -2 plus 1 is negative. A positive times a negative times a negative is a positive. Something between -1 and 0, maybe -1/2. That will give me a -1/2 squared, -1/2 minus 4, -1/2 plus 1. Let's see here, so -1/2 squared is positive, -1/2 minus 4 is negative, -1/2 plus 1 is positive. A positive times a negative times a positive is a negative. Okay. And then let's do 1. 1's a good number between 0 and 4. I lost my original function there, but that's okay. So x equals 1, let's say. So I'm going to have a 1 squared, a 1 minus 4, and a 1 plus 1. Well, 1 squared is positive, 1 minus 4 is negative, 1 plus 1 is positive. A positive times a positive is a negative. And then finally, something to the right of 4, maybe 5. Let's see here, so we'll have 5 squared times 5 minus 4 times 5 plus 1. Well, anything squared is positive. 5 minus 4 is positive, 5 plus 1 is positive, no negatives to speak of there, so that's going to be positive. Now I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my questions from above there, so let me go ahead and rewrite those. So let's see here, part A was x to the 4th minus 3x to the 3rd. And then when I moved it over, I said minus 4x squared is less than 0. And part B was the same thing, but less than or equal to 0. And let's see here. So both these are less than, so I want the negatives in this case. And part A, so less than 0. So I don't want to include the x-intercepts. I don't want the zeros on part A. So I want everything between -1 and 0. Also everything between 0 and 4. Now in part B, I want the negative still, but now I want to include the x-intercepts. And so first things first, I'm going to write it in not the final form first, but let's write it down as, okay, -1 to 0, union 0 to 4. Now that may look like the correct answer to you, and there's nothing wrong with it, strictly speaking. My math lab, though, will mark you incorrect because this isn't really simplified. So because we wanted to include every place where there's an x-intercept, I did that with the brackets as opposed to the parentheses on part A, but we could actually simplify this a little bit more and just say, well, if 0 is included in both of those answers, we don't need to separate it at 0. It's just everything between -1 and 4, including -1 and 4. That answer also includes 0 there as well.